Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to A to Z Running. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A to Z Running Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Zach, and this episode is brought to you by Lindor Truffles, Lindor Truffles, the only chocolate that you can sense with all 6 of your senses upon consumption.
Oh.
Because it's that
You have a sixth sense
good.
About it?
It's
What happens for you?
ethereal.
It's ethereal, okay.
There you go. Then the sound that everyone loves. Yep, that's your Lindor Truffle. Now, for real, it's not brought to you by Lindor Truffles, but if anyone from Lindor hears this ad break and wants to sponsor this episode, we're all about it because we love your chocolate.
We do. So this week we are talking about hang in there moments. I think we've all had them, right, Zach? Have you had them?
I like to quit.
No.
I just try to quit as often as I can. I feel like that's the best path to success. So I quit everything that I do in running.
No, that's not true, and that's really sad to say.
Yeah, so clearly, if you are listening to this episode and you run, then you have had to, at some point or another, face the decision to, do I hang in there or do I quit?
Mm-hmm.
And there are instances, and I'm sure you're willing to admit, if it's happened to you, that it does, sometimes I do choose to quit.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, the road we take only has one direction, and it requires hanging in there to move that direction.
100%. So we took the microphone to Atlanta to capture some sound there of Olympic trials marathoners.
We got the sound of their feet hitting the ground. We got
that
the sound
would have been
of,
cool. We should have done that.
That is a pretty good idea. I'm so glad
Next
you just
time.
said that.
Next time.
This was really exciting because I ran Olympic trials in 2016, as you know, and it was a great experience in a lot of ways. But the thing I walked away feeling was like, I don't think I talked to or with anyone that I didn't already know at any moment in time, and it was entirely on me. I am horribly introverted in every possible extreme, and so I just kind of withdrew within myself. And so good that Andy was here for 2020 to force me out of myself to talk with these people, because there's just so many great stories.
Yeah, we were
got a
so
story.
Inspired hearing everybody's stories there, and I wish we could have even talked to more athletes. So
Right.
we'll keep doing that. That's why we have this podcast.
And that's one of the things we love about these kinds of experiences, is just being able to connect with all these people. So we did exactly that. We captured, in just like a couple minute snippets, a moment in life and training and racing or something like that from over a dozen Olympic trials marathoners. And we're going to bring half of those to you today to talk about kind of the training, running side of things. And then the next podcast episode will bring you the second half to talk about the life moments, the difficult life moments. So before we hit that, let's go ahead and share just a couple of things from the world of running.
So there are some cancellations and postponements, as many of you know, in the running world.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be in LA next weekend. This is not related to running, but it was for a big event. It was a big conference, kind of an international thing. And as you might guess, they canceled it less than 1 week from the start of the conference. That's rough. But, for all of us who are training for a goal, and, we've trained for months, for weeks and weeks on end, and then you get a week or two out and suddenly the race is canceled or postponed 6 months, which now you have to start over again in that sense. And
yeah.
That's tough. So we feel for you. If you're anyone on the list of the many who are experiencing your race being canceled, we're sorry, and we certainly hope that you're able to find another opportunity.
Yeah, and some of those being Paris Marathon has been postponed.
Postponed to October.
Who else, Zach?
So the Rome Marathon is canceled. Italy's been hit pretty hard, one of the hardest outside of China with the coronavirus. So Rome is canceled. Barcelona is postponed. So we got one in Spain then that's going to be in October as well. October is going to become like marathon month if all of this ends up shaking out, because then you're going to have Chicago and all of these, and you're going to have Berlin a couple weeks before. So it's going to be a busy time. And then we also noticed that there's conversation with London Marathon. We don't know, it's not definitive, but that's already on the chopping block now. And as you might imagine, we've got Boston coming up. That could be a concern. It's possible. And the many others going on here in the near future for sure. One more postponement is the world half marathon championships, which was supposed to be in the near future, next week or 2 weeks here. That's now been postponed to October as well. And that one, so even more significantly because that's an international championship as well.
Yeah, and that might shake things up too, who actually will race depending on schedules for those who have qualified for the Olympics.
Right. Schedules, health, all those kinds of things. I mean, half marathoners can be track runners who are jumping up to the half, and they can be marathoners coming down to the half. But either way, they're 2 months, 3 months away from the Olympics if they're running that half championships too.
Speaking of championships, we did have a USA championship this past Saturday. It was the USATF 15K championships
15K.
on the road. Yes.
How long in miles is 15K?
9.
That was good. Yeah, 9 and change. Yeah. Excellent.
You like to keep me on my toes, don't you?
We didn't talk about that ahead of time. I didn't know if you'd grab it.
So the female winner was Marielle Hall.
Excellent. So she's Bowerman Track Club, right?
Yeah, she is. And it was her first USATF title.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So she's been on the scene for a while now, kind of at the elite pro level, but not heard of in the same degree as some other commonly known names are. So it's great to see her grab a championship there, like in the 15K, something like that. But she's been successful on the track too, and she's made some world teams, all that kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see where she's at, coming up to the championship season. And apparently the male winner of the race was Ridwan Haroufi, and we don't know who he is ahead of this. That's not a name we've seen much, which is awesome. We love seeing new faces at these championship level events because it just tells us that there's more people out there we got to pay attention to. I love it.
Absolutely. And he was a Moroccan runner originally, and now he runs for the USA.
Excellent. So we're going to kind of keep the watch on what events are being canceled, what events are still on. The LA Marathon just happened this past weekend despite potentially canceling it.
Yeah, and also in the world of running, if you missed the Olympic Trials Marathon Report, you can find that on our previous podcast.
Check it out on AtoZrunning.com/episode 22. Let's go ahead and move on now to our hang in there moments with Olympic Trials marathoners. All right, so as mentioned, we've got sound bites, about a minute or 2 minutes from about 9 different Olympic Trials marathoners here talking about some of the just like overcoming challenges in training and running. Some of them are going to share from a specific run or workout and how they had to kind of dig in and get through it. Some of them are going to share about more like enduring difficulties throughout training or some of those kinds of pieces. But the reality is we all experience that. And so one of the things I loved about this, and Andy, you can probably agree, I loved sitting there talking with some of the best marathoners in the US of A and having them share these concerns and problems and challenges and being like, oh yeah, I experienced that too.
Yeah.
Yep. Like, you're human. Who would have guessed? You're human. And like I said earlier in the opening, it's really, it's just eye-opening that these people are just all around us as we're at this event. And I went to one of these events and never once engaged with any of this. And so many of these others who are there aren't either. And it's just kind of a shame that can happen because it's an incredible thing. So we were really excited to be able to do this and bring it to you. And I think the big takeaway here is look for the thing that you can relate to and just remember that these are some of the finest distance runners in the history of time. And they're talking about the problems that all of us experience.
So let's get started with our first athlete, Anne-Marie Kirkpatrick. And I have had the pleasure of getting to know her first online and then in person at the trials. And I am very inspired by Anne-Marie because she didn't start really running competitively until after she had her 2 children. And she has posted phenomenal times. She has a 2:37.51 qualifying time for the trials. And let's listen to her hang in there moment.
Yeah, so I think for this build-up especially, it's been a little rough. And then just trying to stay on the positive side and telling myself that nothing is ever perfect. No build-up ever works out exactly the way you want it, and you can still have like a great race despite that. Or, on the flip side, I've heard people say they've had great build-ups and to a marathon and then not had such a great race. So, just kind of having like a little bit of like the flu and some other things come up, and just having this race be on the calendar for so long, because I qualified in 2017. I was just looking forward to it so much and really like putting a lot of eggs in this basket that was a little bit of a bummer. But now I'm like super excited, ready to roll, and just like very happy to be here.
So that was Anne-Marie, and you can you glean what you can immediately from that, which is, yeah, things don't always go great for a single period of time, whether it's even just sometimes one day. There's always something that goes wrong, right? And Andy, you can attest to that.
Yeah, my buildup has been less than perfect as well. So hearing from Anne-Marie and hearing her inspiring story and her success is really motivating.
Definitely. So this next one here, we have Anna.
Yeah, so Anna Dalton is from Anchorage, Alaska. She grew up there, she lives there now, and she trains at a high level in Alaska,
which is really something. So West Michigan runners, as much as we want to complain about the winters, I think she has us beat with that concern.
Definitely. So let's hear from Anna.
So my hang in there moment actually lasted for a couple of weeks. This January, we had a cold snap in Alaska, in Anchorage. And Anchorage is, people think Alaska is really, really cold. Anchorage is pretty mild as far as Alaska places go, but we had several weeks where it stayed below zero the whole time, and I like to think that I am tough and resilient, but there's a fine line between doing stupid things and doing smart things when it comes to training. So getting through those weeks were really challenging, and for one of my long runs, I woke up and it was like minus 15 outside. So I talked to my coach, who is luckily local, and we decided to go inside for that run to this place called the Dome, which is actually a 413-meter full-size indoor track to run. We had 22 miles on deck that day. And running in circles for 22 miles is not something that I recommend to anyone. And just the mental grind of knowing I was going to do it. I didn't do the math on how many circles it was actually going to be. But luckily we did an in and out workout that day, like mile on, mile off. So just breaking it up mile by mile.
I'm curious if any of you have ever tried to run 22 miles on a track of any size, because I'm sure some of you have. And just being able to relate to that specific experience, that's just grueling. So now our Cornerstone days back in college, Cornerstone has this gym with a small, like 2-lane indoor track kind of thing.
Yes.
It's like a walking track around the gym. It's about 180 meters. And so if you do the math, that's, like 12 laps to a mile, 9 laps to a mile, whatever it ends up being. But I have run my fair share of 2-hour-plus runs on that thing, and I think it's probably part of some of my hip problems that I had in college, because I would do things like that.
We called it the mini track of doom.
There's a reason for that. So if you've done that, you know the pain, and if you haven't done that, try not to. Try to avoid it if you can.
Avoid it, yeah.
It's not ideal. All our Snow Globe fans out there, downtown YMCA, shout out.
So Anna was ranked at 390th, and she ended up at 212th place. She beat me. Anyway, I think her mental toughness paid off.
She might be considered tough.
I think so, especially on that course.
So let's talk about Brittany.
Brittany, a woman of many talents. So she is known as the funny runner, and she is a comedian.
Wait. She's known as the funny runner?
She is.
Like,
she's
people
the
see her and they're
runner.
like, oh, she's funny.
Well, she's a comedian. So, yeah, she is really funny. And she does improv. She's just a whole ball of sunshine. She's so much fun to be around. We got to meet her in person, and she shares with us this story.
Does she do improv while running?
We'll have to ask her.
That would be exciting.
So the first thing that came to mind with my hang in there moment is there are two things that happened in training that I look back on and I laugh at. One of them, I had started training with a hydration pack for my long runs because I wasn't getting enough water during the runs. And so I had this hydration pack that was one of my coach's hand-me-downs because I was very against the idea. So I had it on my first long run, and I think maybe at like mile 11, I could not figure out the tube that you drink out of. So it was a hot summer day, and I just got violently angrier at my pack. And so I was on this bike path on this long run, violently screaming obscenities at my pack because it was the pack's fault. And so that's number one. Number two correlates with that, and that is this winter, I went on a long run, and I had just the worst pants on, and I hadn't worn them in a long time, and they just I just kept calling it saggy crotch, and I just my pants just kept getting saggy, and I was as violently angry at my pants. And so my hang in there moral of this story is that all of those crazy things are going to go wrong in training. That's part of it. And I think the more that we can lean into those and make them funny and think about how ridiculous it must have been to be that person on the path with me, watching me violently cuss out my pack or my pants in the crotchular region, would just be gold, right? So my hang in the rim is just embrace the things that are going to go wrong, because that's what's making you so strong on race day and what you can look back on and laugh about and have a story to tell after. So hang in there with your pack and your saggy crotch.
So I don't know that I can relate super well to that specifically.
I can. So thanks for sharing, Brittany.
Problems.
I've had saggy crotch problems. They're no fun. That is a hang in there moment.
Yeah,
but
reality.
Don't hang too low.
Don't hang in there.
That low.
Tighten it up,
yeah,
Andy.
Exactly.
All right, so, the reality of the inconvenience while running, it's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
It's so frustrating when there's just something and you're like, if I could just stop and take care of that, and then I wouldn't have to deal with it the whole time. But then a lot of us are like, I'll just, it'll be fine. I'll just get through it. But it's like, maybe I should have just stopped, or maybe I should have gone back home and changed my pants before I left for that run.
Oh, my goodness.
Who knows?
But we also should mention that Brittany was 13th place at the Olympic Trials Marathon.
She
killed it.
So next up, we've got JJ Santana.
JJ lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he grew up playing all kinds of sports.
Yeah.
And then he started getting competitive in the last 5 years and realized, I'm kind of good at this.
I love this comment that he makes. I love this comment. Okay, listen to JJ say it.
So I think the hang in there moment for me is just getting to this point that I'm at now here. I ran 1 year in high school, cross country and track, and I ran 1 year in junior college, cross country and track. And I did sports throughout my whole life. But at that point, after my 1 year in junior college, I didn't really take advantage of running, the coaching and stuff you get in college. You know what I mean? You have a team and all that stuff. Even though I never got into drugs or doing stupid stuff, never got out of shape and overweight, but I didn't compete after that. So until about 26, I was 20 at the time, 19. Till about I was 26 that I actually get back into it. I jumped into a 5K, just a local 5K. And I liked it. It brought back what I had when I was a kid, sports and competitiveness. And I realized then I only have so much longer that I could see how good I really was. And I felt like I really cut myself short when I was younger. I was good at stuff and I did some cool things, but I never got to the deep end of what I thought I could do. And so I jumped into a 5K. Every year I got more and more into it. I jumped into a 10K, jumped into a half. Eventually started doing more and more miles, 20 miles a week, and then I got up to maybe 25 and then 30, until I got to where I am now. And it's kind of crazy, we get so much cool stuff here. They're giving out the Alpha Flies, and they pay for us to go places. I have a coach now. I'm doing 80, 90 miles a week, surprising myself. So to me, that was my hang in there moment in general, is just getting here. I could have easily not gotten back into sports. And it's not like my life would have been miserable, but meeting people, you know what I mean? You meet cool people, you get cool opportunities. And the fact that I get that for doing something that I like to do. I'm choosing to do it. So for me, that's the hanging moment for me, is just to get where I am now.
So really, seriously, it's just like, I love to do this, so why not do it? And that whole sense of don't count yourself out, don't label yourself before you try, right?
Yes, I needed to hear that, JJ. Thank you.
Yeah, so Andy wrote about imposter syndrome, which kind of feeds the same kind of idea. Like, don't think that you don't belong just because you haven't been there before, or just because, that's just pointless thinking.
Yeah.
I love it. Great advice. So here we got a local connection.
Yes.
Joanna Stevens.
I'm so happy to have connected with Joanna. She is from the Florida Keys, but now lives in Rockford, Michigan with me.
Running
I'm so
with
excited.
Gazelle Elite.
Yes. And she started running at the tender age of 6.
Wow.
She's been doing this a long time, but not the marathon for a long time. Fun fact about Joanna, the Olympic trials were her second ever marathon, and the first one that she ran, she won and then qualified. So you could say that Joanna is very talented.
Well, that's what she gets for being coached by Dathan. He
Yes.
just turns into a marathoner.
She's coached by Olympian, 3-time Olympian, Dathan Ritzenheim.
Good
Let's
stuff.
hear from Joanna.
My hang in there moment was about 4 weeks out from the Olympic trials, and I was running down in Florida, down in Claremont, and there's a loop, the famous 10-mile loop down there, and I was about 10 miles in, wondering if I was going to make it through, just because it was 90 degrees. It's a pretty hilly loop, and I was just really struggling, and I just kept telling myself that this is how I was going to get stronger to make it into the trials.
So maybe you haven't had the inconvenience of running in 90-degree weather in December or January, whenever she was doing that run in Florida. But if you live in Michigan, chances are you've run in 90-degree weather in the summer, and it's horribly unpleasant. And it's another one of those those inconveniences that's just like, I just don't want to do this. Like, it feels bad. It doesn't even feel like it's giving me the the quality benefit sometimes when it's just like hot, humid, and I'm not feeling good. But at the same time, you still got to get in the work.
Absolutely. So our next athlete is Megan Smith, and she is a runner and a doctor of physical therapy. She loves the wilderness, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her running.
So my moment is from Fargo Marathon, which was the day I ended up qualifying for the Olympic trials, but it was the day that I least expected it. It was really cold, raining, and 20-mile-an-hour winds. So I was not excited to run in that for 26 miles. Wasn't feeling super confident in my training. Just wasn't feeling great overall. But I decided I had put the training in, so why not just go out and see what I could do. So I took off by myself, ran way too quick, and Fargo's not very densely populated, so it was a very quiet run. It was just me and the lead cyclist for about 16 miles. So it just really felt like I was out for a run, hard to get into race mode. By mile 10, I just kind of felt like dropping out. But since I was in the lead, I decided I couldn't do that and that I would just give it the best that I could. I got huge blood blisters on my foot by mile 6, which is way too early to be suffering in a marathon. But I just told myself, if you don't think about it, it's not going to hurt as bad. Over the past year, I'd focused on really being positive with running and focusing on positives and just trying to let go of the things you can't control. So that helped me a lot during this race when everything seemed to be going wrong. I came through the halfway point at 1:20, which was way ahead of goal pace, but I didn't believe the clock. I believed my GPS watch, which was off. So I was running way too fast, but I believed my watch, and it told me I was running 6:35, 6:45 pace, which was just fast enough to be believable. And again, I was running by myself, and I'd say around 16, a girl caught me, and then I caught her again. Again, I was just trying to get through 1 mile at a time. My family came to cheer, so I was just trying to get to where my family was. And I got to 20 miles, and another girl caught me, and I thought, well, I'll just try to stay with her, but I had nothing left because I'd gone out way too fast. So I just gave it, everything I could and just wanted to finish strong. The lead cyclist who was with me told me, I'll never forget, that she turned to me and said this is your moment, enjoy it. And I did. I sprinted 200 meters to the finish line, ran 2:44.29, just under the Olympic trials qualifier. And I still didn't believe the clock. Someone told me when I crossed the finish line that I had qualified for the Olympic trials, and I didn't believe it. Probably for about a month afterwards, I didn't believe that it was true. But it was the best surprise ever. On the day that I least expected it, a day that hurt really bad, that I made my goal that I've been working towards for 5 years. It was an unbelievable feeling.
I love the comment from the pace bike. That just doesn't happen, right? But for them to turn on and be like, this is your moment, live it out. And it's just it's really exciting. It's really inspiring. I have my own pace bike conversation moment from
Yeah?
a race.
Tell
Yeah,
us.
and this is not quite the same kind of moment or conversation, but this pace biker has been riding with me, and this was my Detroit marathon run, which was not a good experience for me, by the way. I struggled in that marathon.
Oh, no.
And I was at like mile 20-ish and just kind of counting myself out. I'd just been passed from the third place guy, so I was now in fourth, which is out of the money spot too. And I had only found out a moment before this conversation that the guy who had passed me was a first-time marathoner, and I was like, oh man, it just kind of got me a little bit. Well, the pace biker turns around while he's riding, because they usually have pace bikers stick around the top few people, and he turns around at one point and he's like, you can catch this guy. He's like just saying good things, and then he's like, by the way, I'm your mom's cousin.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh,
That's a funny story.
okay. I didn't know what to say. But it was really kind of, it was motivating, because I was like, oh, this guy, like, he knows who I am. He knows
Yeah.
my mom. He's cousins with my mom. But it was just like that sudden connection to, like, someone is watching me and cares.
Uh-huh.
And now I can't start slouching. I can't sit back in my cadence. Like, I've got to run like I'm a
So
runner.
what happened? Did you? I can't
I
remember.
caught that guy,
You did
and I
catch
ended up
him.
finishing
Okay.
third.
All right.
I did.
Nice.
It hurt real bad.
Oh no.
All right, so we got Stephanie next.
Yeah, Stephanie Andre. She is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and now she lives in Bixby, Oklahoma. And this is an interesting woman. She is a fast runner. She's a former smoker that started running at the age of 29, and she went from a 3:57 marathon to a 2:41 marathon.
Wow.
So fast.
That's a 25% improvement. That's really something.
Yes. So Stephanie is an inspiration. She's super nice. We were able to meet at the trials as well. And here is Stephanie's story.
Mine would be the historical 2018 Boston Marathon, where Desi, of course, everyone knows, came in with the win. The other story of the day was the challenging course. Well, not only the course, but the weather that day, freezing rain, brutal winds. For me, it was an extremely challenging race. I ended up falling way short of the time I had planned and ended up with hypothermia, and it was just a really brutal day, and I was really down on myself for a long time, but I've learned that you don't really, in running, you don't have failure, you have experience. And so for me tomorrow, knowing that I stuck in there, though I wanted to drop out so many times, and I claimed that finish, and I recovered, I bounced back. I know that I overcame that, so I'm going to take that with me tomorrow when things get tough.
So I don't even want to know what that Boston Marathon experience was like. And, we saw the casualties, people dropping out left and right, especially, a lot of the elites, it just floored them. They couldn't even handle it with the cold and the rain and all that stuff. And who wants to, right? I hate running in cold rain. That's like the worst for me. So the fact that she, just gutted it out and, don't get down on yourself, just go out there and still do the work. That's crazy.
Yeah. She's a tough lady.
Next up, we've got Swarnjeet Boyle.
Yes, he ran in California, starting in middle school, moving on to high school, and continuing to progress from there.
I guess my hanging moment started, I'd probably have to say going into my freshman year of college is one of them, especially when I went to Cal Poly knowing I didn't have the best times out of high school and that I'd have to just have a shot at making the team, so trying out. So I put in a lot of miles that summer going into my freshman year. And then I was talking to the coach the whole summer, and he was saying he could give me a tryout, but being on a quarter system, we had started school in September, and by then they realized they had a full roster, and I was told that they didn't have a spot for me. So I trained really hard that year, and I was just like, I knew I'd met at his office when he had initially told me, and I remember looking back at his office being like, okay, one day I'll be back and the outcomes will be different. And then a year later passed by and I had decent times. And then I was told that same summer that that I'd get a shot to hopefully try out this time. And again, the same thing happened. September rolled around my sophomore year, and I remember having that first workout that Tuesday because I found out Tuesday morning that I wasn't getting a shot. And I was just really mad that practice because I'd worked my butt off. And then I ended up wearing my best workout ever, went from 5:05s to 4:45s, 4:50s, 5 by mile. And then the club coach was like, all right, I'm going to talk to the coach for you. And then the next day, I made the team. From there, I went on I was started from the bottom on that team, obviously my first cross-country season, but without my next 3-4 years, I ended up becoming Big West Conference Athlete of the Year, won three titles in track, and won 2 cross-country championships with my team, and was an NCAA qualifier for cross-country. Yeah, hey, if you believe in something, you got to just stick to it and just make sure you get out the door, because that's where it all starts.
So that's the classic, and I think it's Desi, right, Andy, who's the keep showing up thing?
Keep showing up, yes.
And if there's one clear path to success for distance running, it's that you have to put in the time and the work. I mean, there are examples of people who just show up once and they're gold, but they are very, very rare, and the vast majority of us are not like that. So, yeah, I appreciate that story because, you know, especially the discouragement of feeling like you don't cut it and having that happen multiple times, you know, repeatedly, and just the willingness to say, okay, I'm just going to keep showing up.
Yeah.
It's great. And for our last one, we've got Uris Selenix.
Yeah, so Uris ran for Playmakers, and we ran for Playmakers, and now he's moving to Grand Rapids, Michigan. So that was kind of a cool connection. We didn't know that until after we got this soundbite. But yeah, we met Uris at the trials, and we're looking forward to hearing a story.
Yeah, I've had a lot of them, but the big one that sticks out to me would be my first 2 years at college were really rough, just injuries and not running well. And the end of my sophomore track season, I had a meeting with my coach, and he just was a straight shooter and was like, you know, things need to change. It's not going well. And I mean, I knew that. That's why I went in for the talk. Like, I initiated it, and we had just a really good talk. And I left there, ran my first 10K a week later, which didn't go well, but I knew that was kind of my future, and I wanted to get the experience. And then I went in that summer, and I think I got up to 115 miles a week, nearly, and I went from like 80 and just said, I'm going to find out if I can do this. So I was at Syracuse University, and I went into that summer thinking, all right, I'm going to find out if I can run at this level or I'm going to transfer. And that was probably the biggest one. So big turning point for me.
So I think my takeaway here is it's just really about, you know, doubling down on the things that make us successful. Like, you don't have to continue to look for a new path to success as much as just, you know, keep on that path.
Never, ever, ever, ever give up.
So what's the big takeaway, Andy? We've said it a couple of times, and as we listen to the highest level of American marathoners talking about their experiences and their challenges and such, what do you glean?
I think what you said earlier about having it be a shared experience, that we're not isolated in our discouragement, and we are not isolated when things go wrong, that this happens to everybody. And I think that can help motivate us to keep looking forward, to keep moving forward, and just look at our goals and keep after it.
Yeah, and maybe this is just kind of an awkward reaction on my part to all of this, but so many of us feel like, you know, I have to have people doing what I'm doing before I can, you know, like engage with them at this level and running community. So, like, if I feel like I'm too slow, or if I feel like, you know, some of these runners have talked about kind of the lonely experience of trying to train for the Olympic trials level stuff. And the reality of it is the people around me don't have to have the same goals as me. They don't have to have the same, even the same experiences on the whole as me, but we're living the same struggle. To whatever degree we're living it, we're living the same struggle. And I don't think we should count that down as much as we do. We should engage with that.
And I do think, too, that with all of these things that everyone shared, guess what? They made it to the Olympic trials. And you're going to have your silver lining, too. So keep up the good work. Keep fighting the fight. Have your own great overcoming story. And a lot of you already do. So please message us. We'd love to hear about it.
That is a great segue into our conclusion, which is the community thing is what makes us do what we do. So get engaged with us in whatever way makes sense, as much as you certainly are willing and able, and we would love to engage with you.
Yeah, so find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at AtoZrunning. And also, of course, you can find our show notes at AtoZrunning.com/episode 23.